Hey, it's 12 noon out here in the East Coast, maybe a little after. Facebook sometimes takes a while to get those mice churning on that little mill. It's Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio Podcast, and the weekly Town Hall Academy. Great to have you here. This is the only weekly forum for aftermarket professionals that bring fresh, innovative ideas and inspiration to individuals and companies, and we hope you take advantage of this and also look for the Repurposed podcast every Wednesday. We're live on Facebook. I got a great panel here. I'm going to introduce them in 1 second. But first, thanks to Jasper Engines and Transmissions. In addition to the strict quality remanufacturing steps they take at Jasper, they can actually improve a drivetrain's component original design so that it runs longer and better than when it was new. And I was at the factory and I saw they actually showed me how they were improving on original designs. Good stuff. Check out their new featured engine and transmission pages at jasperengines.com. Thanks, Jasper, for your support of the Town Hall Academy. With me, we'll do ladies first. Margie Van Leerup from, formerly, well, I guess we're here because it's formerly Beach Cities Garage in Laguna,
right.
California, right?
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Carm.
What's so interesting is two of you are into new homes now. You moved out to Scottsdale?
I did. I've got my home in Scottsdale and my home in Dana Point. I just moved here in December. What a change. I love it. Brand new home, brand new community.
Good for you. Margie
Yes.
was so kind to send me pictures. And she said, I think you and Ann are going to have to come out. And I showed the pictures to Ann and she goes, I guess we are. I'd like to introduce you to Scott Gonzo Weaver. Everyone knows Gonzo formerly from Superior Auto Electric in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hello, Gonz.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. He's recently sold his shop and a great story to tell about it. And then we have Dave Winters, formerly of Swedish Automotive, Seattle, Washington. Hello, Dave.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Glad to have you. Okay.
Okay.
So they say that when you're getting ready to sell a shop, one of the most important things to do is preparation.
Uh-huh.
And that preparation is about good records and a good, smart, intelligent, normalized profit and loss statement.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be true?
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
That was the bottom line that sold my business. Total transparency. I realized that a couple of times in. Altogether, I had 3 offers on the shop, and having 3 offers on the shop really put it into a bidding situation, which was great because it brought the price up. And I think I landed up with the best people for the shop too, for the growth of the shop. But preparation, when I moved the shop, and when I moved the shop, I wanted to make sure that the goal was, what was I going to do with the shop? And I struggled, and I thought, am I going to keep it? Am I going to sell it? And when I made the decision to sell it, I had to do nothing but prepare for everything to sell it, period.
Michael Gerber wrote a 3rd book called Beyond the E-Myth.
Yes.
And part of the essence of that book was make every decision in your business as if you were ready to sell it or preparing to sell it. So that was your thought.
In fact, that's the books that I kept reading to make sure I was on the right path once I made the decision.
Great. Well, she broke the code. She broke the code for us. You sent me a great couple of quotes from Michael Gerber. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business. You have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic.
That's right. And I watched many lunatics work. Trust me.
Oh,
I had a good friend in the automotive business, and I watched his lunacy. I'm thinking, I don't want this.
Got it. Dave, you had mentioned that to me in your notes, that you just never opened up enough time to get out. The business was too dependent on you. What would you do different?
I see guys that the shop pretty much runs on its own, and we never quite achieved that. We could take a week off here, 10 days at a time. My wife still did payroll every 2 weeks, and so that was kind of our limiting factor as far as how long we could be away. So that is probably one regret I have, is that I never really grew it to where it would just run 100% on its own.
Are you taking some time off now? I guess my big question to everybody, and I've got a ton of them, and we got great talking points for you all. You bought a house, Margie. Gonzo, you're remodeling your house. And David, you just moved into a brand new house. I think it was today.
Last night was the first night here. We are not here full time yet. We still are in the process of selling our old house. We've moved about 50 miles, but it's, from the city of Seattle to a town of 10,000 on the Olympic Peninsula.
Love it.
Thank you for committing time to be here. I'm sure
Certainly.
there's no place to sit there. You're probably sitting on the floor.
Well, my wife is hanging pictures right now.
And you know what? That actually shows I so appreciate you coming on. It was Bob Ward who connected me with you. We've had Bob Ward on before, and with you. Gons, you're remodeling your house, and it's because you have no place to go to work now.
Oh, I have plenty to do. It's just one of those things that wife said, now that you have the extra time, put the time into the house. And I've always been one of those guys that's been, let's say, the home improvement nut anyway. So I'm constantly, building cabinets or doing something. So it just seemed like the thing to do. And now I'm so deep into it that I have no choice but to continue. So, you can't put you can't hang a coffee cup on a rafter right now. So, I've got to put something back in place where it used to be cabinets. So,
well, I've gotten to know Gons pretty good, and he's given me a tour of some of his woodworking capabilities, and he's a very talented person. I'm sure that kitchen's going to be in Better Homes and Gardens when you're done.
Yeah.
Margie,
I don't know about that. But.
Margie, how important is it to have professionals working on your team, accountants, brokers, lawyers?
It's critical. It's absolutely critical. Invest in that. I had a great accountant, still have a great accountant. She does a great job for me, keeps an eye on things. Especially, once you sell the business, once you get what you think the business is worth, you'll never get that. You'll always get what, the buyer thinks the business is worth and what you negotiate. But you can create a fair price for the business with the accountant in place and putting all the papers together, and especially an attorney. One of the things that I ran across is I did not own the building, so I leased the building.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, and I had an interesting leasing company that I dealt with. And one of the fine print was that my attorney read in there that even though even though the new owner was assuming the lease and then extending the lease, my name was still somewhere written on there, which means for the next 5 years, I'd still be on that lease somewhere if someone defaulted. So those are the little details in life that your attorney will take care of you. So, and now that the business is sold, I want to make sure that I have no liability, that I'm clear. Thank you very much. I can walk away. So it is critical at all points.
I see peace of mind when I look at you.
Yes, I'm happy.
Good.
I really am. I'm really blessed.
Interesting about property. Everybody who gets a coach is really encouraged to be a property owner somewhere along the line, to own the property that your business is in. Dave, I know you did, and that was a big factor in doing your deal.
Yeah, so we actually worked out of a 4-bay shop from about 1990 to 2010. In 2006, we bought another piece of property, and by 2010 had built a 12-bay shop. So we own both of those. That's how we were able to retire. But it has obviously given us a very large vested interest in the success of our successors because we're depending on that rent income for retirement. We still owe quite a bit on the shop that we built. So I would have just about given away the place as long as we had the rental income coming in.
Got it. And do you believe you got a fair deal for the business?
I do. I think, we didn't, I wasn't like Margie where I had people vying for the business. The guys that, leased our old shop from us 7 years ago, we kind of started teasing them, when are you going to be ready for the big shop? And about 3 years ago, they started saying, I think we're ready for the big shop. And so about maybe 2 years ago, we put together the deal. They started making payments. They owned about 20% of the shop by the time we closed the deal 3 weeks ago. So I think, I've still got my fingers crossed that they succeed. I think they will. They're both great guys. They're both good operators. Had never run a business until 7 years ago. They'd been in the business for years as techs and advisors and managers. and it always wanted to go out on their own. So when our old 4-bay shop became available, they jumped on it.
Did you provide any mentoring to them?
They didn't really need a whole lot. Hopefully they do fine. I think they will. Time will tell.
Could I ask a question here, David?
Yeah.
At the beginning you'd asked, or you'd said that you couldn't even take a day off, basically, or go on vacation. So what's changed to where now you can leave and you've got to still make sure that they're successful? How will all of this come together?
So it's been really, we took vacations and stuff, Margie. We just couldn't take a month off. We went to New Zealand, we went to Europe, we did a number of the World Pack cruises, but 10 days was pretty much the limit. Now, we're renting a Cruise America RV February 15th, and we won't be back till March 15th. We're going to go down the West Coast and visit family and friends. I've got a hiking trip planned in the Grand Canyon next November. We've got 2.5 weeks in Hawaii in May. It's just really opened the door. And it's so nice. Weekends, Sunday night was always stressful. Oh God, I got to be at work at 8 o'clock tomorrow and raring to go and make that nut. And now we don't have to do that anymore.
So in 10 days in the RV, are you going to start shaking?
Shaking? How do you mean?
I got to go to work.
Jitters.
No, that has not happened, Carmen. I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened.
No shock withdrawals.
Pretty much the other end of the spectrum. I don't have to go to work. I can go for a walk. I can go ride my bike. I can take my dog for a walk.
Oh, I love it. Valuation team. You've all mentioned it a little bit somehow. I know, Guns, we haven't asked you that. How do you come up with, figure out, work with a broker, get in your gut, put a price out there that somebody succeed with? Let's talk evaluations.
Well, for me, I started out with a number that I thought it was worth, which I went through a broker, and I do think, at least in my case, broker was the best idea. Even though you're going to pay a broker a pretty healthy fee for what's going to happen, even though, in my opinion, the amount of work that they do is nil compared to the work that you just spent 20, 30, 40 years at, trying to grow a shop. But it does, let's say, simplify some of the legal aspects of it all, because they're more aware of those pitfalls that you might come into as far as the leasing issue with your name still on it, like Marge was talking about, or the buy-in for 20 or 30% and so on. But that's why I went through a broker. But even with that number set, as Margie mentioned, you're not going to get that number that you think it's worth, because the value is not in that number. It's either in that client base or what the buyer thinks your shop is worth. And that's where I hit a couple stumbling blocks along the line of trying to sell my shop. So when it got down to the push, which we can get into later, why it ended up into a push to sell, I came up with my own little, let's call it, trick to sell it. I divided the shop into two aspects. So I could take the shop itself and sell it at a much lower price than what, let's say, somebody came in and looked around and went, wow, this shop's worth X amount of dollars, and he's only asking this much. But what I did is I took specific tools, equipment, shop equipment even, that I said is not part of the sale. This is a separate sale altogether. And I used it as a teaser to get the guy in that says, hey, I've got X amount of dollars I can spend on the shop, but looky here, here's this tool or something I can have, and he's got it sitting right here. All I have to do is throw a little more money into the pot. And that's what flipped the edge as far as getting the buyer that actually put the money on the table for me.
And that strategy worked?
Oh, yeah, it worked perfectly, yeah.
What happened to the second part? Did he take it?
Yes, he did. He bought every pencil, pen, screwdriver. I walked away with basically, as I used to make the statement that 35 years ago, I started the shop with one test light, one can of WD-40, and one pair of wire cutters. And I purposely, on the very last day of the contract, because I had 2-3 weeks I had to be there to kind of help guide it through, I said, I'm taking these. I took one can of WD-40, one test light, one pair of wire cutters, laid it up on the desk, took a picture of it, and I said, that's how I'm leaving the shop. And that's what I did. So I still have them too.
I love it. I love it. And the reason that Gonzo had to sell his shop was he joined the Zipper Club.
Yeah. Yeah. That was let's say the final, okay, that's it. Can't do it anymore. That was back in June of last year. I was home, actually, believe it or not, doing some remodeling. And I just started feeling this tightness in my chest, and I compare it to the size of a coffee cup in the middle of my chest, and I thought, man, this doesn't feel well. I knew enough to go get some baby aspirins, and I went and got the baby aspirins, and by the time I had turned around and walked back to about the middle of the house, my wife was saying, are you having a heart attack? I said, well, I wish I knew what one was. Maybe this is it. And sure enough, it was. And it ended up with, instead of, the stents, as they talk about, which Carm's already had a few of those, that wouldn't work for me. And I ended up with open heart surgery. So from nearly dead to almost dead to back to where I'm at now. And I'm very happy that I went when I did, but at the same token, it pretty much says you're done. You're not going to be climbing around a car anymore. Sure, in time you'll be able to, but you're not going to walk out of the hospital and go back to work.
So I have a question.
That was it.
Gons, were you preparing to sell the shop even before the heart attack?
Yes, I was. I was planning to sell the shop.
Okay.
But I wasn't, let's say, I wasn't pushing the sale.
Got it. You weren't aggressive with it.
No. It was going to happen. It's going to happen. I was going to get that number that I wanted to see out of the shop.
Sure. Going shop, you're there. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm still making money, doing the writing, everything else. So.
And every day the buyer probably figured you were hungry for a deal. And
I had other buyers come in.
Okay. All right.
Nobody with, a lot of eager beavers that said, oh, geez, I'll come in here. And I'll tell you what, Gonzo, you stick around for a year and you show us how to do all this and you put some more investment in. And at the end of the year, whatever you put in plus a little, I'll pay you that and you'll get everything you wanted. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I'm walking away. I'm done. Okay. This doesn't mean have me linger on for a year, but what happens in a year when you say, it's just not working out for me? Then what? Am I stuck with it again?
Yeah.
Said, no. It's cut and dry. Get me out. I'm done. 35 years.
And Gonzo, what you bring up a real critical point, and that is, what are the terms? How do you do your exit strategy?
Right.
Do you want that shop back in 2 years if it fails? What are the terms? With me, I put the shop up for sale in May. I hired the broker, got everything done. I was out of there September the 12th.
Wow.
Period. Done. I was shocked, actually. I thought I'd sell other things first before I'd sell my business, but I was in the right place at the right time, and I think I had the right broker, and everything else was prepared correctly. And I made sure that I don't have to go back there again. If the business fails, it fails. I left them with owner manuals. I left them with system manuals, process and procedures. Everything was listed. All the equipment had its place.
Yep.
It was everything, just so that it was like, just pick up and go.
Yep.
And you're not holding paper then, Margie?
Nope.
Okay.
Neither am I. Yeah.
All right. No paper. Dave, are you
and just that
paper?
check?
Are you willing? Are you willing to
It's
say that, Dave?
We're not holding any paper. They got an SBA loan, so they cashed us out. Other than we look for a rent check every month, but the sale of the shop was 100% paid for.
It's amazing. David, excuse me, Margie. David shared with me a couple of property values in Seattle. No different than in California, Margie.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
The retirement plans. Whereas if you had a shop in the city, you sell it and they turn it into a condo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing stuff. Okay.
Even with Dave, he's not a shop owner. He's a landlord.
Yeah.
So you're out of the business as much as I am. Yeah. The difference is I didn't own my building as Margie. and I just walked away, and the guy had to re-sign a lease, and he had to sign a 5-year lease for a lot more money than I was paying for the same place.
Same here.
But not my problem, at this point.
We just got a question from Gary Keys from the Zoom platform. How far in advance did the panelists plan the sale, and at what point did they consult with a professional to help with the sale? And let me paraphrase what you just said, Margie. You said you started in 4 months, but was there a planning period before you hung the shingle?
Yeah, Carm, you know a little bit about my background. I closed my shop. I'm a fairly new shop owner. I opened my shop in 2011, and it was a shop that someone else had owned for 30 plus years, and I took it over. And then in 2015, my husband passed away. He had nothing to do with the business. It was always my business. But I had to close my shop because of all sorts of things. I thought, what am I going to do? This was in August, and I had all this equipment. Everything was there, and I thought, what am I going to do? So I intentionally opened up a shop in a smaller location. I went from 6,000 square feet to 2,400 square feet. Instead of 6 lifts, I had 4 lifts. I became much more economical. And the goal was, when I opened, I did a soft open in December of 2015, and then officially, my shop used to be called Viking Auto Care, and I renamed it Beach Cities Garage. I rebranded it. It was strictly Saab and Volvo. I rebranded it to do everything, basically, calling it Beach Cities Garage, so it'd be more generic, more economical, so I could have a bottom line that's in the black, that I'd be making money. And it was strictly, the goal was to close and sell, either close the shop in 2 years or sell it in 2 years. In fact, I only got a 2-year lease with 2 2-year renewals. Wow. That's how much I pressured myself into making sure that I was going to sell the shop. So, wow. Yeah. So I started working with the broker in about March. I started interviewing brokers in March of 2017, excuse me. And then
I was going to say, it sounds like you bought the shop to sell, in a way.
It was always my intention to do that. Yeah, when my husband got sick, I needed income, and so I bought that shop, so that I'd have income. To me, business is business, and so that was the intention. But and yes, so the answer is yes.
Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I mean, it's just a shrewd business plan. That's really what it is.
Yeah. I had owned other businesses before. The last business I owned was a magazine, and I sold that in you're gonna love this story, in October of 2007, and they gave me 70% of the cash, and the rest I was going to hold. And then we all know what happened in 2008, and so I never saw anything after that. Yep. They never published after that, so I learned my lesson on that one. So, yeah.
Amazing. Let's go back to valuation one more time. I know there's a lot of people that, Gons, I loved your strategy, because some people go into their business. It's after hours. The lights are low. They look around and they say, wow, look at all the cool stuff I have to sell.
Yeah.
Not really understanding that those depreciated assets aren't worth a whole heck of a lot. They're only really worth something to a going business.
And how do you get into a situation where, the guy has been, let's say, pretty successful for 10, 15, 20 years at it, and he's going to sell the business, but he wants to sell his tools, and he looks at his toolbox and say, boy, I've got $100,000 worth of hand tools here. Wow, man, I ought to be able to get $80,000 for all this. Well, a good friend of mine made a good point to me many, many years ago, and that was that the cost of the tools when you bought them have nothing to do with the resale value. The cost of the tools is how well they perform their duty over the period of time that you use them. That's where the value is at. The value is not in reselling them. You made the money with the tools.
Mm-hmm.
If you made money.
If you made money, yeah. But it still comes down to, if you bought a Snap-on wrench for $150, one wrench, not hard to do. That doesn't mean that wrench is worth $150 20 years from now. Okay, that wrench may be worth $20. Because as they say, what is it, nickel to a dollar and whatnot. But that is one of these realizations that as a business owner and a mechanic myself, I had to sit down and kind of get that stuck in my head that the tools aren't worth what they were when I bought them. Now, I can value them at that as far as replacement value, but that particular tool in that particular toolbox is not worth that much.
Good, great advice. Thank you very much. Very, very sage advice. Going back to evaluation or valuating a business. Okay, so I've got this great business. I got $50,000 on the bottom line, and all I got to do is send my P&L to the broker, and he's going to send it to this potential client. I saw you shake your head, Margie. I am leading you all down a primrose path here.
Yeah.
And the primrose path is something I always knew called normalization. And so if I was buying a business, I would take that P&L and I'd say, total, full-blown, honest transparency here. What's in here that shouldn't be? We've got to normalize this. And many owners put things in their P&L that have to come out and normalize them. So you've got to set a good set of books up for someone so that they can really find out deep in their heart if they're going to make it, based on what your current, your business trend is in your history. Dave, have you always worked hard to be sure that your P&L was crystal clear?
Yeah, I fortunately have my wife in the back room, and when questions came up, during the sale of the business, we actually had to have a bit of a powwow with the new owners, CPAs, and our CPA, because they were asking questions. And fortunately, I've been with the same CPA since 1985. Actually, I'm now with the son of the original CPA. The original guy died. And with the clean books that we had, we were pretty much able to lay all the questions to rest. So I felt very, very fortunate that we had good people on our team, and we're able to show the new buyers that it's about as clean as you could possibly be.
Margie, can you give us any advice to people that are listening and are going to watch this and listen to this episode, forever? What are the kind of things that you need to be careful of, what you put in your P&L?
Well, I would basically draw a salary, which I did, to show that you actually are making money and putting it in your, in your bank. Put everything transparent, whether it's, paying for your car. I mean, everything, all the details. That's where the devil is, basically. I've got the broker that I hired. It was amazing. As soon as I sold my business, I had 7 or 8 people actually contact me saying, hey, we're interested. Who do we talk to? What do we do? So I gave them the name of my broker. And some of them are actually, 2 of them actually right now are very profitable, but they put everything in their P&L. So it's taking them a good year to put everything on the books so that they're able to be transparent and sell their business.
Well, if they're profitable with all the stuff in, Margie, it's going to get them a whole lot more money at the end of the day if the profits do show.
Right. And, but the key is too, that all of a sudden now the taxes show up. But you know what? Better to take that tax hit and sell your business at a good profit than, you got to pay the piper eventually. So just do it.
In all the experience that I've had in doing acquisitions in my former life, that was one of the, people would come to me and says, hey, we're interested in selling. And I said, have you normalized your P&L? What do you mean? Are you hiding any inventory? Is the utilities from the lake house in here? Now, I don't know why you're all laughing.
Well, is it always crystal clear? No, there's always a dark side somewhere,
Yeah, but it shouldn't be so blatant when anyone wants to.
No. You show it. You're going to show it.
You're going to look at the utilities of this 4-bay place and say, why is it so high?
Yeah.
You really have to normalize it. And it sometimes takes a few years to get it. And Margie, you brought up the greatest point. You may have to start paying a few more taxes in order to get a clean and transparent.
Right. For me, the big issue was that about 8 or 10 years ago, when I started doing a lot of the writing and convention work and stuff, I was away from the shop a lot. And as Dave was saying that, my time away from the shop, using them at the shop, was going to slow down if I wasn't there. So back in those days, the P&L was showing the income and the gross profit extremely high because I had a full crew. And as these years went by and my writing started taking off more, than, let's say, the shop was, I started dropping the shop load. So now the P&L for the shop is much lower. My P&L is still up here, but the shop's down here. Yeah. And that made an issue as far as selling it at, let's say, at the number that I wanted to get. But it all eventually did work out. So,
hey, thanks for being so great here today. I want to tell you, how many times has a customer came into the shop and said that a new vehicle may look and smell nice and I want one of those, and you say, well, wait a minute. The reality is that they come in and they don't quite realize the endless monthly payments, higher license fees, and the higher insurance premiums. So if they really need a drivetrain product to put that wonderful old car back on the road, the Better Solutions remanufactured components from Jasper. And it means a brand new lease on life for your customer's trusted old friend. Thanks, Jasper, for your support of the Town Hall Academy. Marge, ask yourself this question. What will make my business stand out and be sellable? Or why would I purchase my own business?
That was the number one question I asked myself when I opened the business. And number one was that my customer service, the loyalty of the customer, the joy that the customer had when they came in, and that they were not dependent on me, period. Because that's one big thing with a small business. You've got to kind of wean them from that. So the last 2 years that I had the business, knowing that I was going to sell it, that's what I focused on, is that my customers knew that they had a good, reliable, valuable place that they could have their car serviced. And that's how I marketed everything those last 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Guys, tell me about post-sale blues or euphoria. Dave, are you over the fact that you just sold your business?
Free!
I have friends that sold their shop 3 years ago, and they still are giggly every time I talk to them. And now they've sold their house, and they're living on a boat right here in Port Townsend. And we'll ask them, "Do you guys miss the shop?" And they just giggle. It's a heavy load to carry. You got a lot of people that you're responsible for, and you really want to do a good job. And it's really amazing to take that load off.
Can I add something to that,
Please.
Dave? What's interesting is I've owned several businesses, and this was my first literally brick and mortar business. Oh, it was horrifying. Because people have to come to you, number one. You can't go to people and get customers, right? I mean, as far as they've got to come into your brick and mortar to get things done. And that was a big change for me. And then you've got that responsibility of every day, those employees and their families and that liability. I mean, it is such a heavy burden. And it's so freeing because now I can do other things. I'm writing, I'm writing for companies, I'm consulting, I'm still making money, but guess what? I don't have the burden of that payroll and the taxes and the fire department walking in. And shall I keep going? Yeah.
Been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
So,
the other thing is that you want to help those customers. I mean, that was the whole thing with me. And to this day, I still have people that will text me or send me emails, and boy, we wish you were still around. Good Lord, where are we going to go to get this or that done? And then they'll say, "Hey, can you come down and look at my car?" And say, "I'm sorry, I have a no compete clause, and I can't do anything that's going to make doing the same job I did before in a 50-mile radius of my shop." So, and that's part of the sales agreement.
But I also believe you want to get under that hood again, don't you?
Oh yeah. Hang on, I have a cat bothering me here. But no, I don't. I spend a lot of time right now. I'm teaching. I'm trying to grow a small college's automotive department, and it's. I wanted. I believe it's my time to give back.
Yeah.
And I've done the under the hood. I've spent the time busting knuckles. How about I teach these new guys coming up that we keep complaining about that don't have the training to be in the business? Well, I think a lot of it is there's so much to learn these days compared to when I started. I mean, points and condensers. What are those? Now they're into electronics and security systems, everything else that has to be involved. So there's a lot more for them to learn. And to have someone, with experience like this teach them, I think is going to help them out. But on the side note of that too, yes, I am very grateful to sell the shop. You can't even imagine where I was for the last 6 months of 2017, not being able to work in the industry that I was in all those years because of the health reasons.
Yeah.
So it just shut me down. So I still had income coming in. I'm still doing my writing and everything else. So I wasn't lost. It's a total change. But probably the one thing we haven't mentioned yet, and that is another side of the aftermath of selling the shop. And that is Uncle Sam's coming to find you. And you've got your normal income you have, and now you have this huge check that you just made from selling your shop. Wait till the next tax season and see how much you're going to owe. And this is the one thing I probably wasn't really expecting, but it's coming. And it's going to be a bundle. So it's like taking, and let's say, making double, triple of what you made in 1 year.
And paying
now
it back.
and now you're going to pay it back. Right. You're going to pay the taxes on it. So that's another sideline that you've got to keep in mind when you sell the business, that, hey, just because you got a big giant check, it's not all yours yet. Okay. You've got to pay the broker, got to pay Uncle Sam. You've got, let's say, bills that are indirectly or directly tied to the shop that have to be taken care of. So just because it's a large number doesn't mean it's there for you to run out of the country.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that the escrow company helps take care of all of that too.
Yeah.
And I took a percentage of my money, and then the rest of it I kept with the escrow company until everything was paid off. That way I didn't have to deal with it.
Right.
Makes it really easy. So, yeah.
Dave, was that a surprise for you? It's too early to tell.
It's too early to tell. We've only been out for 2.5, 3 weeks.
We're going to hear the yell.
But
we're going to hear the yell from Seattle.
Excellent recommendation. We shouldn't spend all the money right now.
No. Did you use a broker, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Bob Ward assisted us, kind of greased the skids, so to speak, pointed us in the right direction. And then we pretty much just did the deal with 2 attorneys and the buyers. But no broker.
Good advice, Gonza. I appreciate that.
Thank
Dave, you probably got a ton of friends in their 60s, boomers, that have no exit strategy. What would you reach out and tell them?
I communicate with them on a regular basis and encourage them to look at, what can you do? I hate to see guys dropping the traces, still slaving away. Maybe they still enjoy it, but there's a lot more of life to be lived beyond the walls of your shop. And we are fully exploring that now and having a blast doing it.
Sometimes it's hard to see that other side. When you're in the shop, though.
Yeah. No, it's I've only been back to my shop, I think, 2 times since we sold it, because we had some papers to sign or something to drop off or something. I snuck in the back door, snuck back out the back door. I did not, it feels really funny to go back there.
I drive around. I don't even want to even go to my shop.
Yeah.
I don't want to be even close to it.
I want the new guys to, be in total control. I don't want the old regime to show up. That's just not where I should be.
Right.
My commitment, excuse me, after I sold the shop was to give them 40 hours. And I went in there, I trained, I had, like I said, systems manuals, how to run marketing, everything. And I went through all of it, including the software program. And I've stepped in a couple of times. And of course I get phone calls from my customers, on what's going on. And it's going to be it's a different culture now. And sometimes you have to walk away from that culture, because it's their shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a study that I read that said, and I'm sure we're all aware of this as business owners, that most new businesses fail within the first year. Then the remainder usually won't make it 5. And I certainly think that's always a possibility, but there again, it's not my responsibility to keep the shop running now. I did it for 35 years.
But because you got the right deal, Gons.
Yeah.
There are some people holding the paper.
Yeah. There's a skill level you got to have, first off. You have to have a certain amount of business savvy to make it all work. And you've got to be able to go with the punches. I mean, there's not every week that you're going to turn a profit, but then when you do turn a profit, that doesn't mean, hey, let's all run to Mexico. You've got to, be smart about it. And frugal might be the best word I could use to determine what you got to do to keep a business surviving all those years.
The nice thing about my business is a youthful young man. I think he's about 37, 38, purchased the business. And he's got good financial backing behind him. And he's got a good team. He kept all of my staff people. And he's got a great vision. And he'll be successful. I mean, he had one of his people attending the Barrett-Jackson auction. He's got a lot of presence in SEMA. So they want to take it to a different level. And I think they'll do that. I think the business will continue being successful, especially with the customer base. The customers still love him. So it's great. I mean, to me, that's what I want to see. I want to see it successful.
Margie, that's a question I have for you. You had a lot of processes and stuff in place and all written down. Did the new owners adopt that?
From what I understand, the book is not a doorstop, so that's a good thing. and the answer is yes. They are using a lot of them, from what I understand.
Good.
Their marketing's a little different because they're younger, so they're doing more social media than I was doing. I'm a little older as far as that goes, but so they're doing that, and my guys are happy. My mechanics are happy there. So the answer is
great.
yes. Yeah,
that's good.
And from a sales perspective, that post-sale, what do you call that when you have the post-sale regret?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that they had a complete manual so that if something did happen a year or two down the road, that they can't come back to me and say, we failed because you didn't tell us this.
Yeah.
Here's the manual.
Yeah, right.
There it is. And I kept a copy of it and everything so that I've got proof that this is what we did. Yeah.
I gave my new owner to my shop the best opportunities I could give him as far as where he could get the information or what he needed to do. I just don't think he's going to accept it all. But
I could only suggest. I have to tell you something. I have a total open space in my heart for young, struggling shop owners, and having been helped share the voices of the aftermarket for almost 300 episodes. That catalog has all the answers he wants. Key, accountability, personal discipline. You can listen to something and say, that's not me. Pride gets in the way.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm off my soapbox. I'm off, but I hate to see when there's a great opportunity to have it go bad because someone's unwilling to learn and take the next step.
But there again, for all I know, the fellow that bought my shop bought it in, say, the same direction Margie was going. He bought it to sell. Maybe it's not a question of what he can personally do to the car.
Okay.
But I tell you, one person that's extremely happy that I sold the shop, and that's my wife. She was getting tired of that grouchy guy that used to come home, after a day at the shop. And she says, maybe it took a heart attack to knock some sense into you, but hey, you're a much calmer guy, and you're a lot easier to get along with. We might actually stay married another 30 years,
So Gonzalo, can I ask a question if you don't
Sure.
mind? So I one of the things that I posed to Carm was saying that the most important thing, at least for me, was do not tell anyone that you are selling the shop. To me, that was critical.
I was going to ask that next, Marjorie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I am no. You never step on my toes, but I would just love for you to wrap it into the words confidentiality.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I did that because I needed and I really recommend it because we have a lot of gossip hounds in the area that, because I was around a lot of shops, and everyone was shocked and surprised. So for somehow
Wow.
I was able to keep it a secret. Um, First of all, you want your employees to continue with their top performance. You don't want them leaving. You don't want them to get nervous. It's critical that they still have all the confidence in the world that because they're part of the sale of the shop. I mean, that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Your customers, you cannot tell your customers. You just have to keep going, because that's part of what you're selling, is that customer base.
Right.
So, and you've got to do a nice smooth handoff. I mean, I was actually there for the last 2 weeks, and what I did is I made sure that once the handoff was going on, I'm getting a little off base, but I called a lot of my customers once the sale closed, and I invited them in to introduce them to the new owner, so that there was a smooth transition. I did that, and we even had a little what do you call it, champagne kind of party for the transition side of it. And as far as the other shop owners go, everyone else, no one knew, because people love to gossip. And oh my gosh, they can steal your customers. They can do whatever bad rumors they want to start.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a good thing. And even with your friends, I mean, now your closest friends, you've got to, obviously you've got that little thing. But overall, I didn't tell anybody that I was selling the shop. So.
I think they knew I was selling the shop the day I said I'm selling the shop. I don't know where it leaked out at, because I was going to try to keep it secret for a long time. For all I know, it was the guy coming in and stocking the batteries on the shelves in the lobby, and he might have overheard it or something. And boy, I mean, it went like wildfire. But then again, I always had that kind of reputation in town as the guy that was the head of the game, and everybody's always saying, what's Gonzo up to? What's he up to? What's he up to? So it seemed without a choice, it was going to be out there. So, and I think that's why I did have a lot of different people coming in and asking to buy it, but they didn't qualify for the financing, or they just didn't have it. They didn't have the cash to do it, But
Dave, confidentiality.
So we kind of had a similar thing where I think we'd actually made the decision to sell the shop, but we hadn't told anybody yet. And it somehow got leaked. And that was a very dark day, because it went like wildfire through the shop. And we had to have an immediate sit down with the entire shop, which is 12 or 13 employees. And just be totally honest and open and transparent, and there were a lot of really long faces. It was not the way that I would have preferred to have it go. I like to be transparent, but it was kind of, that was like 2 years ago, and it was kind of like telling people, I'm pregnant when you're 2 weeks in. They're going to keep coming back. You haven't had that baby yet?
Yeah.
Because we knew this was going down probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we just didn't want that hanging over us, that you guys are lame ducks and you'll be out of here. But that's the way it went down. I think it's going to all work out just fine. But it wasn't the way I would have preferred it to go down. I would have preferred to have had a meeting with everybody and said, Chris and Todd are buying the shop. This is what's going on. It's, they'll be in here in 3 months, not a year from now.
But it leaked out.
It leaked out.
Did your employees stay, and are they still there now, Dave? And the same question for you, Gonzo.
No employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had one tech leave probably 6 months ago, kind of early retirement, I guess I would say. He was probably just ready and just wasn't. So Margie, we were like you. I was Volvo, then we branched out into Subaru and Mini when we built a bigger shop. He was pretty much strictly Volvo, didn't really want to work on anything else, could see the writing on the wall. And he was, pushing 60, didn't need the money, and just said, I'm done. Everybody else has stayed so far. There are rumors, that one may not be staying, which would be a terrible shame, because he's a fantastic guy. I'd hate to have the new owners lose him. But so far, everybody has stuck. And, I hope and pray that continues. And I really wish everybody, full success and happiness and smooth sailing. The new guys have made changes. They've changed payroll. That's why I asked about your procedures and stuff, because I kind of feel like we didn't have a whole lot of that stuff written down, but I kind of feel like they've got 7 years under their belt. They already want to do it their own way. I think if I had written up a complete procedure manual, it would have been a doorstop, as you said. I may be wrong, but just the logistics of, here's all your passwords, here's the phone numbers for the, Mitchell and all data and all that.
Right.
That kind of stuff, yes, is
Yeah.
pretty transparent.
I even printed a complete customer list. Even though it's in the computer, I printed it so we had a hard copy so that that was black and white.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, my big thing was that I basically mothballed the shop come June of last year. So it was dormant for 6 months until it finally sold.
Wow.
So, I didn't have any employees at the time because I had changed that up a few years ago because of all my other activities going on that I was slowing the shop down anyhow. But that did affect, let's say, the value of the shop quite a bit. But I was aware of that when I was, going to sell it. And since the shop was mothballed, the transition to get in and out of the shop with a new owner was a little bit more easier because we could spend a lot more time doing those detail things about, okay, this is how this equipment works. This is where this is where that part is. This is who you call for your parts and that sort of thing. And I think that made the transition a lot easier. But obviously, at the same token, it is probably very difficult to take a shop that was mothballed, even if for 6 months, and try to open it up under new ownership. And he's going to have his hands full for a while until he gets it going again.
Your own rules, guys. Performance and reliability. That's what Jasper's remanufactured diesel engines provide mile after mile. Jasper's running complete engines are dynamometer tested with horsepower and torque ratings recorded. There's a nationwide warranty included too. Talk about dependable service. Thanks, Jasper, for your support of the Academy. A couple of questions have come in on the Zoom platform. I've found most books are not clean. This came from John Bridgewater. I looked at a few shops before I bought mine and found the books were unusually cooked. And another one from John, he kind of tagged it. He said, any technician thinking of buying a shop really needs business classes before he buys.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Good point, John.
Amen.
Yep.
Hey, look at it. This was, wow. As all academies, they always go places I don't expect. And it's always because my panel comes with huge knowledge of the topic and a lot of passion. So I thank you all. I have one last question for you. Let's go around the room, give you maybe a minute to respond. What was the first thing you did after you got your check?
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. First thing I did is, pay off a few bills and planned our next trip to Mexico. So
that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
All right.
Bought my
Dave.
house in Scottsdale.
Oh, you bought your house in Scottsdale. First thing. Okay, great. Cool. Did you have your eye on it?
I had it all picked out, ready to go. Yep.
You're a planner, Margie. Wow.
I am.
All right, Dave, I'll give you the last word.
We're pretty much the same as Margie. We bought an 1890 Victorian in Port Townsend, Washington, which is where I'm sitting right now. It's been owned by a retired surgeon for the last 10 years. It's an absolutely incredible home. Absolutely mind-boggling.
Good for you. He just got the internet turned on, like within the last 24 hours. Thank you so much for having all this done so you could be with us. How cool is this? Great episode. Margie Van Lerup, Scottsdale, Arizona, formerly from Beach City's Garage. Scott Gonzo Weaver, formerly from Superior Auto out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Dave Winters, formerly of Swedish Automotive, Seattle, Washington. Thank you for your insights on selling your business.